welcome, listeners. I'm Harry Cohen, and I'm joined by my friend and colleague, Connie Fontaine. And we're going to be talking about Be the Sun, Not the Salt. Not just the book, but the very simple idea that we can be more uplifting to others, like the sun and the leaves of the plant, the heliotropic effect, and not salt on the roots of the plant. That's when we are salty. So we'll be covering that and a bunch more stuff. We want this to be incredibly useful and practical, and we're going to be joined by amazing guests.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun today because I think our guest, Kevin Shaughnessy, is going to unpack the concepts in our book better than either of us can. What I love about Kevin and talking to him is he gets it, he lives it, and he can express and articulate it in a way that I think listeners are going to really enjoy.
Love it. So we want all these guests to meet certain criteria. They have to be already good people. They have to want to be better people. They have to be familiar in some ways with Be the Sun. They got a story to tell, and they're working on themselves, but they're impressive, accomplished people in some way, shape, or form. And we have that person in Kevin. I've known him for 15, I think 18 years, and he is what anyone would call a heliotropic person, a great father, husband, business leader, says grace over 1,300 families. He's the head of an organization in Colorado that does amazing things. He was just nominated as the Colorado Automotive Dealer Hall of Fame. He's really a great person and a friend. I continually learn from him. He's a continuous learner, and he's a really great person. And he gets uncomfortable when we praise him like this. This Monday, I was on a Zoom with a bunch of his direct reports, and I said, listen, we're doing this podcast with Kevin on Friday. Say some nice things about Kevin. And for 20 minutes, people just kept going on and on and on about how Kevin has helped them, what a great leader he is, what a great person he is. One guy said, he delivers the baby. He doesn't, make you go through the labor. He just tells it like it is. And another guy said, he brought kindness to the automotive industry. He's quite a remarkable dude. And at one point, Kevin said, all right, enough of that. This is not productive. And
maybe better introduce him before you make him blush.
Okay, fine. All right. So Kevin, tell us a little bit about who you are and why you agreed to do this.
Well, first off, wow, what an introduction. I don't think I quite rise to that level, but man, you make a guy feel good. You're living the life. You're being the sun. And what an honor. Here I've known you since before the inception of Be the Sun, Not the Salt, and to be on your first podcast and to be considered and asked to be your first guest is just a great honor. So I can't tell you how happy I am to be here. Thank you both. And Connie, you've been such, just foundational to be the sun, not the salt, to be with both of you. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Well, those are a lot of accolades. Maybe Kevin, it would be fun to start with the story of how you got into the car business.
I got into the car business maybe the way a lot of people do, really by accident. My life dream was to become a pilot. I come from Dayton, Ohio. The Wright brothers are there, and flying is always an aspiration of mine. And so to that end, my senior year in college, there was a party and maybe had a couple beers, and, my dream of flying maybe overcame me, but I decided to climb a water tower, and I took the long way up and the short way down. And the short way down resulted in a broken tibia and fibula in my left leg. So I've got a metal rod from my knee to my ankle in the left leg. It made me ineligible to be in the military and kind of derailed a lot of things for me. And I had to kind of figure out what's next. And so while I was sorting out what's next, I started selling cars, and I did it, maybe a little reluctantly, but didn't have a great feeling about the industry, and decided that I didn't have to be defined by that, though. I could kind of bring what I wanted. So I decided to give it a whirl while I figured things out. And I guess 33 years later, I still haven't quite figured it out yet.
Well, what I love is that you started from a good place, but also you still haven't figured it out. Your humility, your drive to want to be better is one of the qualities that makes people heliotropic, the desire to be better.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who does have it all figured out, right? We're all just trying to get through this life and be the best we can and learn along the way. And, when what's the saying? When you're green, you're growing. When you're ripe, you're rotten. So, I try to stay green and keep learning and keep figuring it out day by day.
You might have more sayings than anyone I've met.
Oh my God.
Well, I got,
He's kind of not too routine. I would just mess that one up. I got to write that one down.
I love that. And I love how committed you are to doing good and not just being successful. When we talk about this stuff, we talk about doing good, and you always remind everybody it's also good for business. It makes us better humans and more successful in life. And if you wouldn't mind, just how did you become so good or successful? And let's see if we can help our listeners say, that's something I can take away.
Because it's not just those big things. It's a lot of the little things that you talk about.
well, first of all, I don't know that I am that good and successful. I'm trying hard every single day. If I do a good job today, then I can come back tomorrow and do it again. But, I don't know that I'm that good, but I aspire to goodness. And in our industry, auto sales, for example, if you're a car salesman and you're about average, you're going to sell a car or close about 1 out of 4 times that you talk to customers. 3 out of 4 people you talk to wind up buying elsewhere, which means the more successful you are, kind of the more of a failure you are, right? I mean, if you sell 5 cars, that means you talk to 20 people and 15 didn't buy from you. If you sell 10 cars, that means 30 people didn't buy from you. So the more we do, the more we miss. And I almost feel like that's a metaphor for being good, right? The better we try to be, the more we realize how much upside we have to continue to be better. And we become more aware of the positive impact we have, but we also simultaneously become more aware of the missed opportunities to do more good. So it's not just humility when I say, I don't know that I'm that good, because I really know all the missed opportunities for good that we have.
I love the way you put that, dude. And, you're the one who first shared with me the James Clear stuff, the marginal aggregation of incremental gains. Did I get that right?
No, I love that about you.
Still didn't.
What? Say it again. The aggregation
of marginal gains.
I knew it.
The tiny little pluses that just add up into big things, and they wind up compounding and multiplying. It's the snowball effect.
So apply it to Be the Sun. What did you take from Be the Sun that's aligned with what we're talking about?
Well, being the sun, that's just a synonym for kindness, right? And being virtuous in our actions in every way that we can, every day that we can, all the time. And that has really an exponentiating effect, because when you inject somebody with kindness, it changes them. It doesn't leave you. You actually grow the amount of kindness there. You feel better yourself. That person feels better. And there's an echo chamber effect that bounces back. And the opposite is true too. I don't know what the opposite of heliotropic is, but that would be being the salt.
That's right.
And you're salty to somebody, then they go and they are salty to somebody else, and that multiplies. So the aggregation of marginal gains, which is just the big impact of doing little things a little better over a long period of time, really are evident in being the sun.
Did you start out in the business with that mindset?
Kind of accidentally. I, like a lot of people, got into the car business because I needed to make some money while I figured out what I wanted to do. And I didn't aspire to being a car salesman. I had a negative image or connotation of being a car salesman. So when I decided that I wanted to sell cars, I thought, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to counter program that negative image, and I'm going to change the reputation of our industry, at least to the customers that I talk to, just one customer, one person, one interaction, one car sale at a time. And I would tell people that. I would say, look, I know that we don't have a great image or reputation, but I'm going to change how you feel about buying a car, one customer at a time. And I think I'm still trying to do that here 30 plus years later, just with a bigger megaphone, to be able to change that reputation, more customers at a time. And really that was being the sun. That was heliotropic.
Mm-hmm.
I love that you do that deliberately, intentionally, consciously, because it does take effort. Most people think, well, don't I already know this stuff? Didn't you already know this stuff? Your mom and dad taught you to be a nice person and say please and thank you and all that. I want to help the listeners to this podcast. I want to nudge them. I want your story, our stories, and our other guest stories to nudge the people listening to go, you know what? I could do more of that. This is not something that's out of the question. I already am good like that guy. What's a takeaway that you could give them?
In terms of what?
Well, you're trying every day to be a little bit better. Great. How do you do that? Give me an example.
Well, I don't think it matters really what job you have. I think that we all have days that we go home at night tired and weary and beat down by the day. And maybe it was a tough day and we don't feel good about that day. I've come home from work and told my wife, maybe even recently, tough day, just really tough. And I've come home at night just soaring after work, right? Like, what a great day. And it might surprise people, but you don't go home feeling like that because you made a bunch of money. You go home feeling like because you made people feel good. You made a difference. You solved a problem. It might be that I had a customer call me that was stranded on the side of the road 3 states away in the middle of an emergency. And we came up with a creative, helpful, prompt solution that really saved somebody's day, saved their trip, maybe saved their lives. And those are the types of things that we go home feeling great about. And so, to borrow your phrase, we try to do more of that.
Mhm.
So I love that you put it in that simple term, because that was the answer I was looking for, which other people can lean into, which is, damn, if I can do more of what I already do that makes me feel great when I'm helpful to another soul, when I'm trying to do some good, when I'm trying to be my best self more often, you're going to be successful. You're going to feel great. It's win-win all the way around. So thank you. That's exactly what we want. I want to be reminded of that. Chapter 1 is do all the good you can. And we wrote 30 little reminders, which is what this is about, to, oh yeah, right. I can do that. I can bite my tongue. I can not say the snarky, salty, nasty thing that I'm thinking,
Yeah. And who wouldn't want to feel like that more often? Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love watching you guys together. Kevin, can you tell us how you met Harry or when you met Harry?
Yeah. I've been in the car business since 1990. And Harry, really took on, I think, kind of a prominent role at Ford Motor Company, maybe in the late 1990s, really became to start to touch and influence more Ford dealers. So I became aware of who Harry was, but I didn't know Harry. Harry was he's like the Wizard of Oz, this voice behind the curtain in Dearborn that was, do more good, be nice to each other, don't be a dick. Good advice like that. But, he was probably some unreachable, untouchable, person at the top of a giant organization with over 300,000 employees and really connected to the people that ran Ford Motor Company. I don't mean why Harry did, but he was in the room with the people that did and was talking to them and helping them to help dealers to be more effective and, maybe shake off some of that bad reputation also by training people to be better people. And so I was exposed to some of that training, but I didn't know Harry personally until I came to my current role at Phil Long Ford of Denver in 2006. Harry was working with Ford Education and Training to put together a program called Selling You, which was a training curriculum for Ford dealership employees. And my dealer was a member of the Education and Training Committee. So Harry and some others came out to the dealerships, interviewed employees, and were really seeing how they could put the practices in place. And I had an opportunity to spend, I think, an hour with Harry, just one-on-one. And, I kind of admired him from afar. And so I knew that the opportunity to spend an hour with Dr. Harry Cohen was a big deal, and I didn't take it lightly. And I was just struck by what a down-to-earth, connected, honest, real human being he was. And I think that we kind of connected in that hour. And I don't know how you felt, Harry, but I just thought, I like this guy. I'd like to be around this guy more. And I could learn a lot from him.
Well, I just knew Kevin was a no bullshit, straight shooting, good soul who wanted to be a better person. He was one of the brightest, most articulate, well-meaning, straight shooting, great dealers that I was really impressed by. He was a good man when I met him years before, but then he's in a leadership capacity. This guy, when he spoke, people listened to him because what he said, he meant, he knew what he was talking about, and he said it in a clear and clean way. So then, I mean, I've always been attracted to, this is the heliotropic track, attracted to people who are, you know, bright and making stuff happen and doing good.
Well, it's fun. You guys describe each other in heliotropic traits. I mean, that's the reality, is what draws you to people is that kind of genuine, authentic, just gab that sounds like you guys had from the get-go. You know,
But
Kevin, that was before the book, obviously.
Yeah.
But since the book, is there a chapter? Is there a concept or something that you feel like you've really grown with? And there you go, right in front of you. I love that. Got mine right behind me.
So for those of you who are just listening and can't see, he held up a book with about 20 different Post-its in the different pages. There's 31-page chapters. I always tease, and Connie always says, don't say that, but it's a timeless toilet read. You're supposed to leave it around so that you can open up one page, get an idea, go, got it, thank you, reminded. So we want people to get this idea. Just lean into a simple idea and you can have a better day and be more effective.
Yeah. So I think one of my favorites is chapter 8, which is to assume positive intent. And, you know, so often, you know, we interact with somebody and you're like, what the hell did he mean by that? Or, you know, why would she say that? Who does he think he is? You know, and when we do that, we're assuming negative intent and we are injecting that into the conversation. And, you know, one of my other favorite reads is The Four Agreements. It's Don Miguel Ruiz. And he has that as one of the four agreements. His is the other side of the coin, which is don't assume negative intent. Right. And I remember when I'd read that first. And so when I looked at Be the Sun, it said assume positive intent. I thought that was clever and I appreciated that, but it's a game changer. When you go through your day and you take people at their word, when they tell you something and you just take it at that without trying to figure out what they really mean or attach things beyond it, you really unburden yourself with a lot of negative thoughts, or at least I do for myself.
Nice. I love the way you said that. Thank you. It is a game changer if you can shift your own cynicism and sense of, yeah, what's he mean by that? And just let people be their best selves. So love that.
I think chapter 16 was speak
what?
fluent gratitude.
Yeah.
And, you know, for me, I think gratitude is the absolute best place to be. I'm at my best when I'm in gratitude. You've taught me, Harry, that gratitude is a muscle that we can grow and we can exercise. And that's what we are doing when you ask people to say kind things or recognize somebody. You're asking for appreciation. And, you know, in my life, there have been moments where I was, you know, swept into gratitude. You know, it wasn't a conscious decision, but I was swept into gratitude. And when I reflect back on those times, those are times when I was at my best self. And so now I go out of my way to try to synthesize gratitude. I want to recognize things. I want to appreciate things. I want to notice things and be grateful, because as I'm noticing those things, I mean, you cannot be pissed off and grateful at the same time. It's like keeping your eyes open when you sneeze. And I'm a better version of myself when I can push myself into gratitude.
Would you
Love
feel
that.
comfortable sharing a specific, you know, like a story or example of that?
Yeah, the one that I always return to in my life. Like if I could create a feeling with a depth of gratitude, I've never been able to get back there again, even though I've been blessed in a lot of different ways. But probably 20 some years ago, my wife and I were having dinner in Albuquerque, New Mexico one night, got a terrible phone call from my mother that my brother had been in a terrible car accident. And, you know, she didn't know if he was going to be okay. And turns out my mother, my father and my brother were leaving a basketball game at the University of Cincinnati. And it was a cold, rainy December night. My brother was a few steps ahead of my dad, and they were crossing a street. A car was coming 60 miles an hour, no headlights on, and just collected him. My father heard a boom and my brother's gone. And the car then went off the road with my brother on the windshield and hood, you know, and it went into a muddy ditch and rolled him off. And he had compound fractures of both arms, both legs, blood, bones, trauma, just terrible. And, you know, probably non-survivable in most cases. The first responders showed up, took him to the University of Cincinnati Trauma Center. So I jumped on a plane, middle of the night. Didn't know if he'd be dead or alive when I got there. When I got there, he'd been in surgery all night, but miraculously, it was all orthopedic injuries. You know, he had metal plates and bars, but no brain damage, no organ damage, nothing that was going to end his life. He had a really long, tough rehab ahead of him with broken arms and broken legs. It was like a cartoon. He had both arms up in traction, both legs up in traction, casts everywhere, but all orthopedic damage. And he was going to be okay. So the gratitude of that moment just swept over me. And I wanted to do something to thank the people that took care of him. I didn't know what to do. So I went to a local bagel shop and I just basically bought the place out. And I wanted to bring it back for the nurses and the doctors and the custodians, just everybody in the trauma center there at UC. They're wonderful people. So I bought the place out. And as I was coming back into the hospital, there was a person in a wheelchair with a sign that said, you know, need food, money, whatever, anything else. And it's not anything I'm proud of. It's just a trait of my own. But for whatever reason, I have an aversion to panhandle. I don't like it. I don't even like the firefighters on Labor Day with the boots. I mean, that's not the best version of myself. But in that moment of gratitude, I had different eyes. And I saw this person and I just said, hey, I got like dozens of bagels. You're hungry. You want to eat? And he said, yeah, that'd be great. And I said, what flavor you want? I got every flavor that they make. And he said, I don't care, just anything. And I said, what's your favorite? I forget what he told me, but he told me something and I dug one out. And I said, all right, how about schmear? You want a schmear? Because I got every schmear in the place. I got strawberry and herbs and chives and honey and plain and whipped and low fat. What do you want? He said, that's okay. And I said, no, really. And I got the silverware out and cut a bagel and smeared it all up for him and gave him a bagel. And I'd grab myself a big, cappuccino. And I said, you want a coffee? He said, no, that's your coffee. And I said, no, I can get more coffee. Don't worry about it. And I gave him my cappuccino and my behavior was so much different because I was in a different place. I was just swept up in gratitude in that moment. And I always look back on that and think, how can I get back into that place again? How can I be that person in that moment? And it's fleeting and it takes exercising that muscle. And it's something that I work on and haven't been able to get to that depth of gratitude, but I do know that I am a better version of myself when I am grateful for the things around me.
So one thing I want listeners to hear from that story is you don't have to have a tragedy of that kind to remind us in the tiniest ways to express, to feel, to notice, to work the muscle of gratitude. I love that you said it. I love you reminding me that I said gratitude is a muscle because you can do it while standing in line, by looking around. You can do it by offering someone anything. Yesterday, I did it on the plane coming home. I offered to take a bag down for a lady. And, I was grateful that I was aware. I'm just telling you, Kev, that story of how do you get that muscle working is a good reminder. I'm hoping all of the listeners to this are just nudged to see opportunities. You don't have to give a schmear and a bagel to anybody, but you can do something.
Well, it's a reminder too. It's not just, Kevin walked away feeling really good, but can you imagine not only what you did for another human being, but the people, anyone that would have been passing by and saw it, how they felt. And then this huge takeaway as you were walking away. So it's a great reminder for all of us.
Love it. You got another example of another chapter that stimulates you, that reminds you, that nudges you, that makes you a better person?
What about as a dad? I'd love to hear a story as a dad, how you apply these principles, if you do.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you one that nudges me and it challenges me, which is good because if I'm not challenged, I'm not learning anything. Just reminding, oh yeah, I knew that. That doesn't do much for me. But when I read this, I'm like, oh, I got to be better at that, especially as a dad. But be an Olympic listener.
Yeah.
I've got a 13-year-old daughter. So I get chances to listen. When she gets going, she gets going. And I just love it. And I find that if I keep my mouth shut and just listen, she tells me, a lot of things that I'm glad that she tells me and that I need to know as a dad. And when I'm trying to give her advice or tell her what to do, she's not talking. And so it's something I try to do more at work professionally, is to listen more than I speak. I constantly tell myself 2 ears, 1 mouth, 2 ears, 1 mouth, 2 ears, 1 mouth, and I like to talk. I'm a talker.
You once told me you used to ask multiple choice questions and you stopped doing that. I love when you said that because I never noticed that you did, but I like the example.
Yeah, I would do that with my kids. And I just think it was just a bad habit. But, I would ask them, hey, what do you want to do today? Do you want to go out and do something or just stay home? Right. And the question is much better. Hey, what do you want to do today? Just leave it wide open. I would just throw 2 choices on it for expediency.
Yeah. I love the fact that you said it because expediency is not a great way to listen. You can't, somebody once told me that to listen well, it's not an efficiency game. How do you efficiently listen? It's not really, they don't really go together. So I was reminded of that by you.
Your chapter is being an Olympic listener, right? Not being an efficient listener.
Well said, buddy. Well said. So again, I'm hoping that people listen to this and don't think of you as a unicorn or that any of us is some kind of special, remarkable human beings. You're a good, solid citizen. But Kevin, imagine that, people listening to this are nudged to be a little bit better, a little bit more helpful, do a little bit more good, be a little bit more grateful, be a little bit better listeners. I mean, that's my wish and hope, that this spreads like wildfire, that people listening to this and or watching this go, damn, I could do that. It's not a bridge too far. It's not that hard. As good as I am, I can be better. That's what I wish and hope for.
Yeah, well, that's what we're bringing into our organization. With 1,300 people, we want our employees to go home feeling good at night. We want our employees to have that satisfied feeling of having helped somebody, made a difference in somebody's life, having, helped grow in a career, or even just had a meaningful conversation with a colleague, a coworker, whether a superior or subordinate, but had a meaningful conversation that added value to somebody else's life.
Man, just that. I mean, that is not a bridge too far. And I just think of that as a goal. What are you going to do today? I'm going to have a meaningful conversation with somebody. And that's huge. Could be a kid, a spouse, a colleague, a perfect stranger. I'm going to smile and make somebody's day.
Well,
So
and that's your point. I think you always make that point here. It's just one thing. Just start out with one, just get a little bit better. This isn't about taking on a whole new practice.
And like going to the gym, the great line, the heaviest weight at the gym is the front door. You go to the gym, you lift weights one day. Well, it doesn't really do anything. Well, actually it does, but go like 20 or 30 times, just a little tiny bit. And that's the slow, tiny buildup of this stuff. Kevin, that's what you both reminded me and taught me and are living proof. We've been talking every Monday morning with your whole team for 30 minutes. It's like going to the gym. It's talking about what is beautiful and what works beautifully with others and people. They still have to be reminded. Like, all right, who wants to go next? And then they squeak out something beautiful about another person. It's like, damn, that's the point. And these, hardened souls become softer. So I want more people to get this message. Let's change the world, dude.
Yeah. And I was curious if there's one of the ideas that Kevin's worked at that's finally gotten to be that muscle memory, super easy because you do it all the time now.
Yeah, I think I would tell you that organizationally, one of the things that we do all the time now is that we do express gratitude to each other. And we show appreciation when somebody does something for each other. And that has been a game changer as well. And, a tangible bit of evidence on that is that in my organization, we have 5 Ford dealerships, but 2 are rural dealerships. And the Ford store in Denver, Colorado is one of the biggest Ford dealerships in the country. So it's a great big Ford store, but we've been in business since 1945 with Phil Long. So in 2018, I came into my role overseeing the group. And one of my bucket list items was, I thought, I'll know that we're on the right path when our three big Ford stores can be the number one, number two, and number three highest volume stores in the state of Colorado. That means we're serving more customers than anybody else. Customers are telling us we're on the right path by choosing us. They can buy their Ford anywhere. We don't make the Fords. We sell the same F-150 that somebody else sells. But when more customers are choosing Phil Long to buy their vehicles, then the other 40 stores in the state are all behind us, that we've done something right. So we'd never done that in 78 years. In July of 2020, we did it for the first time ever. It was a big deal. Like, it was really cool. So we created these plaques for our general managers and the people that were key to accomplishing that. We even gave them to some of the people at Ford Motor Company that were just such good partners and supporters of us. And we borrowed the picture of the Ford versus Ferrari Le Mans race where Ford GT came in 1, 2, 3 across the finish line. You had 3 Fords crossing the finish line. So we put that on the plaque because we felt it was emblematic of the accomplishment. And since then, we've done it a few more times in 2020. And then we did a lot in 2021 to the point that those 3 Ford stores finished 1, 2, 3 for the entire year in 2021. In 2022, we did a lot more. And those 3 dealerships finished number 1, 2, 3 for the year. And in 2023, we're 1, 2, 3 for the year. And it's just become a habit. And I can tell you that there's no collusion going on. They don't move sales between the stores. I mean, these guys are competitive, even with each other. But they cooperate and they support each other and they recognize each other. And that little thing has allowed us to grow our business, and it's in a significant way, and to become that much more effective in the marketplace.
So I want a small assist for that, because every Monday morning for 30 minutes, I'm on a Zoom with all of your general managers since 2020, having this conversation, talking about, tell somebody on this Zoom something good about them, somebody else. And literally, it's taken months and years for people to feel really good about saying what they love, appreciate, respect, admire about each other. These ardent competitors. It's really fun to watch, Kevin. So
what do you think holds people back from that, Harry or Kevin? I'm curious. Why we all know, because we all intrinsically know gratitude and showing gratitude is positive, but what holds people back?
I think fear, for one. I think that there's a fear that if we recognize something in others, it somehow diminishes us. I was talking to somebody the other day that said something before a group of people that was really moving. And it required like a huge amount of vulnerability on that person's part. And they got up and they just bared themselves to a group, and it moved people in a way that really surprised me. It was wonderful. And after this person spoke, I was talking to them to the side, and I said, so many people are afraid to be vulnerable because they think it's going to make them look weak and people will like them less. And it almost never happens that way. Almost exclusively, when you express vulnerability, people admire you. They see strength in vulnerability. And the fact that so many people are afraid of the opposite happening when what's most likely to happen is just, it must be just part of the human condition, because so many people get it wrong. It's not just like there's a few knuckleheads that don't get it right. Like almost everyone gets that wrong. And it's almost the same thing in recognizing the good in others. And when you get into like a corporate type of environment or a big business environment or a competitive environment, sometimes it's hard to recognize that because people are trained to want the spotlight for themselves and they feel like it takes them off themselves. Our Denver Nuggets just won the world championship, NBA champions. Mm-hmm. People are saying about the Nuggets, which is what they say about most winning teams, which is they're just such a team and they support each other and they recognize each other and they call out each other's talents and skills and benefits and contributions. And they recognize that. And that's what makes a championship team. For some reason, people are afraid to do that because they think, well, if I point out how good he is, then maybe people won't think I'm good too.
I think it's all of that, Kevin. I think it's habit, and I think it's culture, and I think it's practice, and I think it's human nature. And I think it takes what you said, which is courage to be vulnerable and express love, which is appreciation, admiration, and that's hard to do, but we all know how good it is. The joke, don't put your marriage on the no maintenance setting. I told you I loved you when we got married. If it changes, I'll let you know. I mean, how come we don't express our love to our loved ones enough? It's the same reason, Connie. I think at work, this is a form of love / appreciation, which you have to be vulnerable to do authentically. So as far as I'm concerned, let's just keep helping people, remind people, do more of that. John Wooden used to insist that people who made the basket would point to the person who threw him the ball. It was a form of recognition, deliberate recognition that says, listen, you made me successful and I want to acknowledge that. And the practice, the deliberate practice of that is the exercise of going to the gym. It's what we do Monday morning with your team, Kev, which we want more people to do in their own way.
Yeah, and it doesn't always have to be goopy. I think that's the other thing is expressing gratitude or using the word love. Some people would shy away from, but it's so simple. Wow. Just articulate. That was a really great job you did there. And I think you and I have shared sometimes we're less likely to do it even for each other, you and I, because we know each other so well. Well, he knows he's really good at that. She knows she's really good. And we have a tendency to not. And yet every little bit of gratitude that we show each other even is, an uplifting moment in the day and a good reminder for us to do it for other people too.
All right, guys, we're coming to the home stretch. I want to thank you, Connie, for helping make this happen. Kevin, I want to express my love, appreciation, and gratitude to you, but you get the final word, my brother. What would you like for the audience to hear, remember, or do as a result of all that we've talked about? And you can say anything you want.
Well, I reflect back on that book. Everything I learned in life, I learned in kindergarten. And, when I read Be the Sun, Not the Salt, I don't learn a lot of new things in there, but I'm reminded of what I already knew. And I'm reminded in a very powerful way that connects it in a practical way to my life. And, the principles are things that we've all been taught. Like you said, our parents said, say please and thank you, look people in the eye, show appreciation. But the whirlwind of our lives and our jobs and everything that happens around us. And when we return to those values, things work better. They feel better. It's more fun, better result. And I think that's my job description, is really to, make things better for everyone that I can. Going back to chapter 1, do all the good you can, right? In all the ways you can.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I so appreciate the way you share this stuff. And I hope other people listening to this or watching this can feel what a good soul you are. And like you said, I think that's my job description too. I think we have the same job. So
I think we all do.
I think we all do. Let's compete to finish 1, 2, and 3 in the Do Good Olympics, man.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I come from Dayton, Ohio, where the Wright brothers came from. One of the Wright brothers once said, if I were to give a young man advice on how to success in life, I would tell him to first choose a good father and mother and then to be born in Ohio. So, I had a leg up because I had a great father and a great mother. I was born in Ohio. But after that, just going out and doing good and treating people well. And one thing I didn't apologize for circling back, but when I talked about our stores like cooperating with each other, I want to make clear, it doesn't stop with cooperating with each other. Like they cooperate with their competitors. They return phone calls. They show courtesy to other stores. And guess what? They get it in return. And, there's so much, we're ourselves. We're one person. The rest of the world's 7 billion people. There's a lot more kindness that can come back to us than we can put out. And when they put that support and kindness and respect and courtesy and heliotropic, being the sun principles out there, so much more comes back to them than they're able to put out. And that's a big piece of it too. So it doesn't stop with how we treat our employees and our customers and each other. It extends to our vendors, our competition, and just everyone.
Dude, can we drop the mic and say...
That's right. He said it better than we could.
I mean, seriously, how are we going to find better? You said you got better podcast guests than you?
Way better.
We'll keep that secret for another moment.
As far as I'm concerned, I could listen to this and be inspired by it again and again. Thank you so much, my brother. Thanks, Con.
Hey,
thank you
very much.
Good to see you. Thanks.
At Be the Sun, Not the Salt, our mission is to spread this message and make the world a better place. In our podcast, we hope to share stories that nudge each one of us to be our best self. If you heard something today that nudged you, inspired you, we'd love to hear from you. Please email us at stories@bethesunnotthesalt.com. And who knows, we may feature you on an upcoming episode.